Good morning. My equipment is not agreeing with me today, so we have to do it a little differently. I'm glad you dropped by because we're going to make some biscuits. No, we're not going to bake some biscuits. We're going to make some biscuits, and it's going to be a biscuit quilt. Isn't that adorable? So, biscuit quilts are nothing new. Matter of fact, the newer version, people call them puffy quilts and bubble quilts, which is, they also look like that, but the original name was biscuit quilts. And when I researched it to find out why, the closest I could find is because it looks like a pan of biscuits, which it does, and they rise up like a pan of biscuits. Now, they're quick and easy to make. You're going to love making them, and I hope you do. At least try. You'll be quite satisfied with everything once you try. All you need are fabrics that are, these have a 5-inch square block on the top and a 4-inch block on the back. Now, I use 5-inch squares because they're convenient, they're easy to work with. It's a nice size to work with, but also charm squares are exactly 5 inches, and a layer cake cut diagonally and horizontally gives you 4 5-inch squares. So it's a perfect size if you have any pre-cuts and want to use them. Now you can use all one color. I just did a scrappy, a little too scrappy because I do not like the red in this. The rest are pastel. Well, maybe that's a little dark, but the red does not fit. So when you're setting out your colors and designs, keep an eye on what is where, and before you sew them together, kind of glance at it, maybe even take a picture. I don't know why, but you really can see things on a camera that it misses your naked eye. So take a picture, see if you like it. If I had taken a picture, that red one wouldn't be in. I'm not satisfied, it's going to be removed, but in the meantime, we'll talk about it because the rest of it's very pretty. So the 5-inch square for the front, and I used a 4-inch for the back. Now, a lot of people only use a 1/2-inch difference for their front and back, and this is the entire inch. I think the inch makes it puffier. It gives you more room to put your polyfill in. So it's just, you should try a couple. Try them a couple. A 1/2-inch difference and an inch difference. They're both square, just to see which one you prefer. Everybody has their own ideas. So you cut out quite a few, as many as you want, till you get started and see what's going on. Now, you take both the wrong sides together. It's hard to tell in this one, it's the same. Wrong sides together, which is unusual for us as quilters, and you match one corner exactly. When you have that matched exactly, put it under your needle, come down about 6 stitches, needle down and stop there. That'll give you 2 hands to work with, and you can take the bottom part and match it exactly to the bottom of your backing, and you want to pin that, you can. Now you're going to make a fold about halfway down and pin the fold. I would make the fold coming down. Make sure your folds all the way around are going in the same direction. To me, it would be easier to make the fold coming down because you're sewing with it, not against it. So make your fold halfway down and sew that seam, and you end up with one seam sewn and one little pleat. Now needle down and put it this side under your needle. Again, down 5 or 6 stitches, stop, use your both hands, and you can pin the two together until you get used to the routine. Again, make your pleat about the middle, needle down, and continue to your 3rd side. Do not do the 4th side. Always leave the top open. You're going to want it to fill your biscuit, and always you do your 3 sides. Now, you can chain stitch these. Some people do all one side and then turn them around and do all the other side. Some people stitch all 3 sides on one and then go to the next and all 3 and all 3. That seems quite efficient, and when you're finished with that block, you're finished with it. So whichever way you prefer, again, you try it. All of these hints and tips are ones that you can listen to, but you don't have to follow. You just do whatever is easiest for you. I found the 3 was much faster. Now, when you've made a bunch of little pockets, you clip them apart, and you have your 3 always empty on the top. And now you're going to sew them together. So you take 2 of your little pockets, this time right sides together. And when your right sides together, you're going to sew 2 of them together that you end up with the seam in the back. Now when you're doing your original one, and again, it's whatever stitch size you use for quilting, and it's 1/4 inch seam. However, you're going to sew another seam on top of this one. So if you want to use a scant 1/4 for the first one, and then when you sew them together, the full 1/4, or use a 1/4 inch in this one, and when you sew these, just go 1 or 2 threads past. You can see where the seam is, so just go to the left of the seam when you're sewing it. And that way, you're not going to see the bottom seam bottom stitching through there. So you're going to sew some together. This is 3. I would not sew an entire row if you're making a quilt. You can try, but you know the longer the row, the more awkward it is. It's very workable in blocks at a time. And especially later on when they get puffy and awkward, it's easier to have a workable size. Then you can put your blocks together. That seems to work very well. So you have your, threads everywhere. You have your little row. I'm using 3 for a sample. And again, your opening is at the top every time. So you're going to fill your biscuits. And this is polyfill that you use for toys or pillows. A small handful, and you can decide yourself. You can see what size, it depends on the size of block you use, or if you use a 1/2 inch difference between the 2 blocks or an entire inch. So you do the filling of each one, just a small handful, and try and make it about the same size. You're not going to measure. Nobody's going to pay attention to that. They're just going to be so happy to see the quilt they won't care. But about the same size every time. Once you have your filling in, you're going to close these over. Now if you want to put a pin at each end and then pin your little pleat in the center, then until, as I say, you get used to working with them. If not, just hold it down and a pin in the center. I find at this point, little clips are good because you're going to sew another row here, so you're starting to get a little more fabric with each seam. So if you want to use clips at that point, it saves your fingers too. They're both good, but the clip saves your finger, that's for sure. So you fill one row across. Then when you have your row filled and clipped, you're going to add another row to it. You're going to add a row. This time, you're going to add the new row to the top row, and this time we're finally going to close the top up. So when you have these all pinned, you take your empty next row, the empty one, and if you see it this way, you're going to put right sides together, which is what we're used to doing. The bottom of this row, remember, always leave the top open, the bottom of the next row to the top of the row you just filled. And you're going to clip them together. And you already have your pleat made in the bottom row, so they should be exactly same length. Clip it to the top of the first one. This one is filled, this one is not. And when you sew them, you match your seams. Just so make sure your little pillows are in line, and just sew down there, and you have your second row ready to go. Now you're just going to repeat, and you're going to fill the polyfill in the second row and continue along. Do your little fold. I don't have another clip right at hand. I'll use a pin for now. Fold that right across and pick up your next row that's empty. Make sure your open is at the top, and you're going to sew this row, and you just continue along until they look like this. It's something you can work at a few minutes at a time. You don't have to worry, okay, where did I stop? Am I in the middle of a block? Do I have this block done? Each one is done individually, so you can pick it up and work at it at any point, and you don't forget where you are, and they're fun and easy to work with. Now, the back, this is the right side out on the back. but you're going to see all your seams, and the right side out here. Now, you don't need a batting because you already have your polyfill in there, but you do need a backing. So just a piece of, another piece of cotton for your backing, because I don't know if you want it very heavy. Remember, this is the weight of this is going to be warm if it's on top of you, or if you're using it as a blanket. But just plain cotton on the backing, and as you do for a regular quilt, make it a little larger on each side, a little longer, so you have something to work with. And I just cut this, I didn't cut any particular size, but you want enough to work with because you might be folding this in to use it as a binding. So 3 or 4 inches around each side. Now, to ensure that your backing is not going to move while you're completing your work, put your backing right side out because it's going to be visible, and top of your quilt. And I would use quilting pins at this point because remember, you have several layers to work with. The quilting pins are easier than the straight pins to work with. And pin it here, there, and everywhere and have it ready to go. Then if you would like to, sew a seam around the outer edge, 1/8 or so, just to secure it that it's not moving. Now, for the quilting part, you can either sew each seam individually. If you want to use a fancy stitch, then you can see it, hold it, just kind of pull it apart a bit and use your fancy stitch coming down. Or if you want to tie it, start from the back, go through the layers, come out in the corner of one of your little blocks, across to the opposite corner, and back to the back again. Now up one other of your 3rd block and across to your 4th block, back down, and tie it a couple of times. Cut it off about 2 inches. Now that makes a little extra cross in the center of each spot where the biscuits are joined, and that's really cute too. And it falls in line with the age of the quilt idea, the biscuit quilt, and because of course they did theirs with ties. They didn't do quilting, machine quilting then. They were all hand done, and they were all tied. Now, for your border, one thing you could do is give yourself, I'm not going to give you measurements, but if you want to cut it 1.5 inches or 2 inches, whatever, away from your edge, fold it over and machine stitch it to the edge, leaving a little bit of a stand up there. Or if you want to fold it over and hand stitch it to the edge of your quilt. You could add a ruffle at this point, which again would make it look like one of the originals. And you can decide, there's lots of other ideas, but I thought they were really cute, they were unique, and originally they were filled with sheep's wool. And every spring, listen to this, every spring the wife or the mother would take the quilt out and rip out every little pocket, all the sheep's wool. The children would recard the wool, she would wash the quilt, then put the clean wool back in and resew the whole quilt. It makes you realize how grateful we are to be able to have the equipment we do. So that was a big job. And in some areas they called them wool beds because you had your wool batting and they were nice and warm in bed. So wool beds was used, or biscuit quilts. Now, as I say, lately you might see them under puff quilts or bubble quilts. Now, I think that's about it, and you can enjoy yourself. Remember, the backing is any cotton because you're not going to see it. You're going to see the actual backing you put on. But if you have one you're not using, you don't really know why you bought it, we have those, or you don't like it anymore, just keep in mind that this part is going to show because you're only putting cotton on the here. So if it's a very wild design or a dark color, but you're putting a light color complete backing, it might show through. So check before, think of the backing you're going to use and check before you use it, because it might show through there. You only have that one layer. Otherwise, it's going to be not going to be visible. It is while you're making it, but you're going to cover it. So whatever kind of fabric you want, whatever design or fabric you want there, you're all set. I hope you try it. I'd love to see some of them. and enjoy yourself, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.